Origin of Shooting Star. Hello everyone, Stitch Doll here. Some of you may be wonders, what is Shooting Star's origin? Well, I'm going to tell you exactly what his origin is. All started just shortly after Equestria was formed. In a small settlement in the northern Equestria, there was a small settlement of both of old unicorn, all point kinds together. There was a couple there, a unicorn and a pegasi. For many years they wanted to have their own family. Their father was working as a carpenter, and the mother was working as a gardener in the city. And one day they found out they wanted to have a baby. They both were so excited to be parents. And then the day came when they had their own son, which they named Shooting Star. But they first found out their son was very much ordinary. He has a horn and wings. The only thing that is, he was born as an alicorn. The only known alicorns in Equestria was actually Luna and Celestia. Both of Shooting Star's parents was very surprised, but they loved him no matter what happens. And already as a filly, as a colt, Shooting Star showed great talent in magic, and at age 5, he had actually mastered all of the simple spells that only would have taken at least a number of years, at least that some 10-year-old would have tried to handle. His father was very surprised that his son was so gifted in magic, and he wanted to have him under another teacher. So Shooting Star was already as a young one. He studied magic with a few other those local unicorns. But after only 2 years, he had mastered all the spells, all the basic spells, learning and new spells, and his teachers were stunned. They had never experienced any unicorn or even an alicorn, especially in his age, to learn the spells so easily. Even that those spells often take maybe a few years to study or even learn. But he mastered all the most basic spells only after 2 years. And they were surprised that even he as an alicorn, they thought he would still have the same difficulty to learn new spells already even if he was a regular unicorn. But he proved them very much wrong. Even over the next few years after, he was still studying under another group of unicorns. As he grew older, he became more knowledge on magic and history. And his parents was just wonder, what will they do? Should he let them decide to be a carpenter or gardener or a teacher? But Shooting Star, he didn't want any of those. Even he learned a lot about their works and some others. He wanted to explore, but his parents told him, you should stay in your home. You can be a teacher. You're a great knowledge. You're a great scholar. You had a great examination from school. But then he got an invitation from Celestia and Luna to study some more magic in the Canterlot of the True Royal Sisters in Evergreen Forest. And his parents was first a little bit against it, but he said they wanted him to learn more magic and more about something else. And since they both are alicorns, perhaps they could teach him something else that the regular unicorns in town couldn't teach him. but has taken his skill of the knowledge to the next level. And the first, they agreed. So they both sent him away to the Royal Sisters. And there he actually studied the new spells, magic, and became very close to Luna. Because they were, even though they had not the same age, but they were still very close. Many of the opponents in this castle around the area thought that they were a couple, but they both declined they weren't. They were even dating. Both of them are professional friends, nothing else. But after that, he has studied there for 5 years on new spells, anything he could teach. And since Luna and Celestia didn't have much more to teach him, he decided to explore. Even his parents were expecting him to return home after he finished his studies there. But he sent them a letter telling that he's not coming back home. He decided to travel around to at least help others. He said that he wanted to be a teacher, but he wanted to teach others. He wanted to spread the old knowledge he had learned over those years to others, perhaps to even stabilize schools or elsewhere else. At first, his parents was very against that idea, but then they realized he has a good point. Since he had learned so much in the hometown and about the Royal Sisters, and an idea to start new schools or other cities, villages, could be actually a good idea to spread the knowledge and make the world even better for others. So they agreed. So for the next number of years, he traveled from one town to another. He actually saw the birth of several of the major cities later on, like Trondheim, Maidenhead, and Philadelphia. He even traveled to Dragonslands to see one of the study of the dragons. And unfortunately, most of the dragons there were very dangerous, and he couldn't even stay there as much too long. So all his basic knowledge about the dragons are quite limited. Even he tried to study the dragons for a distant or even much closer, but they were too dangerous. Even he tried to get some other opponents with him to help him to study the dragons, but he realized he couldn't put any others in danger. So he decided to travel to other places. For about 10 years, he spent his time there in Saudi Arabia and Mauritania to study their culture, their society, and how they handle magic. And he even teach them some of the basic spells that are some more advanced spells from Equestria. He even encountered a few griffins and even a few sea ponies when he traveled to the oceans. But his contact with the sea ponies were only used for a brief time. And then he decided to go back home. But when he came back home, his parents weren't there anymore. He found out that his parents had suddenly got ill only about 2 years earlier, and that they couldn't even reach him because he was not in a major cities, and they didn't know exactly where he were, because at the time when they know that he was in Saudi Arabia, but it was too late. He had already left. He was sorry that he couldn't even meet them once again for the last time. But he decided to help their last wish, to stay in home. He decided to be a teacher, and he did. Since he was an alicorn, he was born immortality. So he decided to be a teacher, and after being a teacher for nearly 200 years, he decided to end that. Even had taught generation after generation of magic and history. He decided he wanted to do something else. But he remained in his hometown. Many of his old friends and their descendants often asked, why hasn't he settled down, started a family? Perhaps had any other alicorn children? But he often said that he didn't want to settle down He didn't felt that the need to settle down since he was immortal. He didn't felt to settle down, that he could do anything he wanted to do. And after that, he decided he didn't stay anymore in hometown. So he sold his home and started to travel around. And for the next several decades, he actually encountered many dangers. He saved countless opponents from dragons, hydras, from storms. He often gets help for letting opponents let them stay in their hometowns for as long as he needed. But he wanted to do something else. And at his 400-year-old birthday, he decided he wanted to do something else in his life rather than be a teacher or traveler. Even he loves to travel around Equestria. He has seen so much, encountered so many unique individual ponies, creatures, just seen so much over the years. He decided maybe he could start writing down in a book. And since he moved to a small town just near Manhattan where Cersei were going to be, there he bought a house. There he started to write a book about his previous history, about his life in his own town, and also the encounters of the dragons from South Arabia and the sea ponies. And after that, many of those books was actually published and sold across Equestria. After he had written about maybe 4 books about his past history, about his past adventure travels, he stopped. After a while, he felt lonely. He remembers the idea of that. Some of his past memories at some point that why haven't he settled down? But then he decided he wanted to settle down, so he started to look around in town to see perhaps he could find the special zone point. And in fact, he didn't. For the past 50 years in that town, he never found any pony that could be as perfect, or at least as special to him. So he decided to sell his new home and travel around to see if he could find his special zone pony. But for the past 50 years later on, he didn't find any other ponies he could find. He spent decades, centuries, to find his special zone pony, but so far, nothing. After he was searching for nearly 400 years more, he decided that is over. He started up trying to find a place where he could settle down. And actually, he found a place. But no pony lived there. But he decided to live a bit just on outskirts. It eventually were an area was called Evergreen Forest. And then he remembers the castle. So he went there, but found it abandoned and nearly destroyed. Then he heard from other ponies from traveling that Celestia had banished her own sister, and he was very shocked because they both was very close, very like best friends. But what happened? All they could tell him that Luna tried to take over Equestria and by sending it to Eternal Night, and he couldn't even believe it. But he did. He actually then decided to stay in the area where he settled down. And for the next several centuries that passed, he met a countless opponents in the area. But then, one day, a town was built in the area, was later called Ponyville. But his state remained hidden for many years from other ponies. The memory of Shooting Star faded away mostly for over the past few years, centuries that passed. Many thought that he was just historical figure or just a legend. And the town he grew up in, it was also gone. After a few centuries in the north, the weather became a little bit colder, so all the ponies there decided to abandon the city. And after at least 300 years, no trace would ever be found of the city. And what happened to Shooting Star? Actually, he remained hidden in the same house in a little small cottage in the forest. He used his spell to prevent the timber wolves or any of the other dangerous creatures to ever appear nearby. And if any pony was flying over or even walked by, he used a camouflage spells that looks like a big rock, nothing else. He, he lived there alone, but one day when he was in a forest, he actually heard a pony who was injured. He saw it was a small filly, and her name was actually Affable. He saved her from 14 little wolves who were trying to attack her, and she saw that he was an alicorn. She couldn't even believe it. But she asked his name, and he said that was a shooting star. And she told him that she heard about his name from a legend that her big sister told her. And that he then later took her to the farm. And so much later after that, the news about Shooting Star came public. Celestia had heard about this later on, and she couldn't even believe it. She thought that he was gone, basically had disappeared, middle of nowhere, until she found out that he was still alive, and that he has been living in every forest in a secret spell using. And after that, he became very close friends with many other ponies in Equestria, like in Ponyville. And from that moment, he decided to find his true love, and after a searching for time, he actually found his true love. He found a mare named Moonberry, and that's how Shooting Star's origins start.